All right. Hey guys, so the first thing that you're supposed to do today is the which one doesn't belong. So you're going to pick one of these graphs. You're going to say, hey, this one doesn't belong because of this reason. So like for instance, I would pick this one because this has um, two large humps rather than just one. All the rest of these have one greatest maximum. These have two. And this is going to be something called bimodal, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so this is the video that you should have watched. So with that being said, I'm just going to kind of go through it. First thing is you want to identify what your mean is. Your mean is going to be the middle number and a standard deviation of 20. And so the question is asking what percent of the test takers receive scores between 460 and 500. So the first thing you want to do is you want to draw a straight line up and down, and then you want to do your curve, okay? And this is just your normal distribution curve. So that mean is going to go in the middle, so that's going to be 480. And then you're going to add 20 to 480 to create the next line. So 480 plus 20 is going to give me 500. And 500 plus 20 is going to give me 520. And you want to do 3 sections to the right. So 520 plus 20 is going to give me 540. Then you're going to do 3 sections to the left, but this time you're going to subtract 20 each time. So 480 minus 20 is going to give me 460. 460 minus 20 is going to give me 440. And then that third section, 440 minus 20 is going to be 420. Okay? Then you're going to label your percentages. These percentages are going to be the same for a normal distribution. Okay? I highly suggest that you memorize these numbers because they're not going away and it's going to be the same for all normal distributions. So in this first standard deviation, it's going to be 34% on both sides of the mean. Okay, so it's 34 on both sides. The next little section is going to be 13.5. So 2 standard deviations away, it's going to be 13.5 in that little section. The next section, it's going to be 2.35. Sorry, I wanted to make that smaller so you could read it. 2.35. And that last little section is going to be 0.15. These are going to be kind of where your outliers are going to be. They're going to be chilling all the way out here. And we're going to see that in the next part. So this says about what percent of the test takers receive scores between 460 and 500. So we're going to look at 460, which is right here, to 500, which is going to be right here. Well, you're going to add the percentages that are in between those two numbers. So what's 34 plus 34? 68%. Okay. So this is what she did on that video. And she was talking about how in these first two, this first section of the standard deviation on both sides is going to be 68%. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. I would highly suggest, again, that you memorize these numbers that are underneath the distribution curve, as well as 68 and 95. So 95 happens in 2 standard deviations, and 68 is going to happen in that first standard deviation. Okay, these are 2 numbers that you're going to see quite often, especially if you ever go into the psychology field, or if you go into biology field or anything like that. You're actually going to see that happen. This actually relates to the coronavirus. If you actually graph this, we're looking for, right now they're talking about like a peak. That's kind of where we're looking, but that's a whole nother discussion and we can talk about that later if you want to. These are your notes that go along with that video. So your first step is to draw a normal distribution curve, okay? And your next step is to calculate the values for each standard deviation on the right, on the graph. So right here, you've got that average that goes in the middle. This mu right here is something that just stands for mean. You can also see this as x bar, but normally you're going to see this as mu, which is just a Greek letter. The sigma This is a lowercase sigma. That's going to represent standard deviation. Standard deviation. Okay, you need to know these two Greek letters because you're going to see it quite often. And again, this is how they calculated it on this problem. So I'm just showing you basically stuff that you've already seen. And then you're going to put your numbers, your percentages underneath the curve. Highly suggest that you memorize these numbers. Okay? And then finally, answer the question by locating the test scores. So 460 to 500, what's the two percentages that happen in between here? 34 and 34, what's 34 plus 34? 68%. Okay. So this was your assignment for the day. So it says, scores on the IQ scale for 20 to 34 age groups are normally distributed with a mean score of 110 and a standard deviation of 25. So for this first section, you're going to draw and label a normal distribution curve using this data. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a curve. And my curve's kind of weird looking, sorry. And then I'm going to draw a straight line going up and down. So what did it tell me that my mean score was? It told me that it has 110. Okay, and a standard deviation of 25. So that means that I'm going to add 25 to 110. So 110 plus 25 is 135. And 135 plus 25 is going to give me 160. And 160 plus 25 is going to give me 185. I don't know why I was trying to put 4. Sorry for the sloppy handwriting. Okay, so you're going to do that 1, 2, 3 sections over. Okay, over here, you're going to subtract 25. So 110 minus 25. So 110 minus 25. All right, so that'll give you 85. And then 85 minus 25, that's going to give you 85 minus 25, that's going to give you 60, 50. And then 50 minus 25, that's not right, that's 75. I did that twice. Oh my gosh. Okay, so 60 is going to go right here. My bad. And then 60 minus 25, that's going to give you 35. Okay, so again, we're going to add our percentages on here. So this will give me 34% right here, 34 right here, 13.5 right here. I'm going to try to color coordinate these. Make it look all pretty. And then 2.35 here, and 2.35 here, and 0.15 right here, and 0.15 over here. Okay, so then your questions for the next page, it says about what percent of people in this age group have scores of above 110. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our little graph, okay, and we're going to look at when our numbers are 110. Well, it wants above 110, right? So everything to the right of 110. So I'm going to take each of these percentages and add them together. So I'm going to take 34 plus 13.5 plus 2.35 plus 0.15. And when I add all of that together, I'm going to get 50%. Now this makes sense, right? Because this is half of our normal distribution curve, okay? So next question, it says about what percentage of people in this age group have scores of above 160. Okay, so let's look at it. Where's 160? It's right here. And it wants us to be above. So above is to the right, right? So that's going to add 2.35 plus 0.15. When I add those together, I'm going to get 2.50%. On part C, it asks, in what range do the middle 95% of all IQ scores lie in this age group? Okay, so let's think about this really quick. So when they're talking about middle 95%, they're referring to this right here. Well, that's 2 standard deviations over from the mean. Okay, so let's look back at our other problem. Sorry. Right, so in our other problem, 2 standard deviations over. So I'm going to take 13 point, in what range do the middle 95%? So we're looking at the numbers. So this starts from 60 and goes to 160. So our range is going to be from 60 to 160. Next question asks, about what percent of the people in this age group have scores between 110 to 135? Okay, so from 110 to 135, what percent of the people in this age group have the scores between those? Well, from 110 to 135, 34%. Hopefully at this point you're kind of picking up this information. Doesn't really get much more complicated than this. Okay, so about what percent of the people in this age group have scores below 135? So we're looking at 135, but we're going to look to the left, okay, because below 135 would be 110, 85, etc. So we're going to take 34 plus 34 plus 13.5 plus 2.35 plus 0.15, and that's going to give us, so when we add all of those up, I'm going to have 34 plus 34 plus 13.5 plus 2.35 plus 0.15. That's going to give me 84%, right? About what percent of the people have at least a score of 85? Okay, so let's look at it. So at least a score of 85. So from here over. So that's going to be 34 plus 34 plus 13.5 plus 2.35 plus 0.15, and that's going to give me 84%. Notice how those are the same answers, but they're just facing a different way. So make sure that you pay attention to the wording of these questions because it can be a little tricky otherwise. So when it says a score of at least, we're going from that position to the right, okay? If we're saying at most, just like what we're about to see on this next question, okay? On this next question, it says about what percent of people have at most a score of 60. So that means at most is going to be like our highest. So for instance, 60 is going to be our highest. So we want everything to the left of 60. So that's going to be 0.15 plus 0.235. And that's going to give me a score or a percentage of 2.5%, which is just like what I'm seeing on B. Look at how these questions are kind of similar. So this is asking about like the top 2.5% and then the bottom 2.5%. Okay. One thing I want to mention, a couple of dates that you got coming up. Your performance final is going to be over May 4th through the 7th for all your classes. So just keep that in mind. Please don't miss that day because it's going to impact your grade. And your final exam for this class is going to be on May 12th. Please don't miss this day. They're trying to help you out by ending school a little early. So, like, don't put yourself in a bad position. So make sure you take care of these dates. Put them on your calendar, put them on your cell phone, whatever you need to do. All right.